My wife proposed an open relationship without knowing. I discovered her affair. I'm 32 years old. I work in data analysis for a mid-sized company. And 6 months ago, I discovered that my wife was cheating on me with a guy from work who was basically a serial predator who manipulated married women for fun. What I did after probably makes me either a vindictive asshole or someone who simply defended himself. I'm not really sure yet, but I need to tell this story because, honestly, I think I did the right thing. Or at least, that's what I tell myself when I can't sleep at 3 in the morning. Rebecca and I met in college, like when we were both 23 years old, and we got married 3 years later in a small ceremony because neither of us wanted something big and ostentatious. We were, that kind of boring but happy couple, or so I thought. We had our routines, our favorite TV shows on Friday nights. We went out to dinner every 2 weeks to that Italian restaurant we loved, and basically everything was comfortable and predictable. Rebecca worked in human resources for a tech company, made good money, and I did my thing with numbers and spreadsheets. We didn't have kids yet because we wanted to wait until we were more financially established, buy a better house, that kind of thing everyone says before life punches them in the face. The first 5 years were good, honestly. Yeah, we had occasional fights about stupid stuff like who forgot to take out the trash or why I never put dirty clothes in the hamper, but nothing serious. Rebecca was my best friend, my partner, and I thought we were going to grow old together, doing the same boring routines until we died. Sounds terrible when I put it that way, but it was comforting. You know what I mean? Not everything has to be fireworks and drama all the time. Things started to change about a year ago. Rebecca got a promotion at work, which was great because it meant more money, and she was super excited. The problem was that with the new position came new coworkers, and one in particular, Danielle, became her new best friend. Now, I have nothing against Danielle personally. I never met her in person, but Rebecca started talking about her constantly. Danielle this, Danielle that. Danielle says women need to rediscover themselves after a certain age. Danielle thinks traditional marriage is an obsolete social construct. The kind of conversations that make you think, are we really talking about this? Danielle had just gotten divorced. I think she was like 35 or something. And apparently she had decided that her mission in life was to liberate all married women from the chains of boring monogamous marriage. Rebecca started to change after spending time with her. Suddenly she cared more about her appearance. Not in a bad way necessarily, but she was constantly buying new clothes. Started going to the gym 5 times a week, when before she went twice, and dressed up a lot more for work. I thought maybe it was part of feeling good about her promotion, like she wanted to look professional and successful, so I didn't pay much attention at first. But then the more subtle changes started. Rebecca spent more time on her phone, smiled when looking at the screen in a way I hadn't seen in years, and when I asked her what was so funny or interesting, she'd tell me it was just work memes or inside office jokes. She stayed late at the office more frequently, got home like 9 or 10 at night when before she left at 6, and she always had a perfect explanation about urgent projects or last-minute meetings. I worked from home most days, so I didn't have much contact with my own office, and I guess I assumed that maybe that's just how life was at a big tech company. Then she started mentioning Matthew. At first, it was casual, like, oh, Matthew said something funny in the meeting, or Matthew has interesting ideas about how to restructure the department. Matthew this, Matthew that. I noticed because the name came up a lot, but Rebecca mentioned him in such a natural way that I thought he was just another coworker. Turns out Matthew was 38 years old, married with 2 kids, and, according to Rebecca, was super smart and had revolutionary ideas about relationships and communication. I remember one dinner where Rebecca explained to me for like 20 minutes Matthew's philosophy about how romantic love is different from erotic love and how people need different types of connections to be truly happy. I nodded and ate my pasta, thinking it was just intellectual office conversation, nothing important. Looking back, I should have seen it coming. The signs were all there, right? The emotional distance, the phone protected like it was nuclear missile launch codes, the increasingly frequent evening outings, the sudden interest in the philosophy of open relationships. But I was a trusting idiot who thought 6 years of marriage meant something, that our history together was enough protection against that kind of thing. How naive, right? Everything. exploded about 6 months ago. Rebecca had supposedly gone out with Danielle and other girls from work for wine and came home around midnight a bit drunk. She went straight to the shower, which was weird because she normally took off her makeup first and then showered. She left her phone on the couch, and I was there watching something on Netflix when the screen lit up with a message. I'm not one of those people who checks their partner's phones. I had never done it in 6 years, but something in my stomach churned and I just looked. The message was from Matthew and said something like, "I can still feel you. Can't wait for the next time we're alone." I sat there, staring at the screen like an idiot, rereading the words over and over as if they were going to magically change meaning. My hands were shaking when I unlocked the phone. She used my birthday as the code because supposedly it was easier to remember, and I started reading the messages. I'm not gonna lie, what I found made I want to vomit right there on the couch. There were weeks of conversations, things I never thought I'd read in messages from my wife. Photos that definitely weren't appropriate to send to a coworker. Plans to meet at hotels, when I thought she was in late meetings. References to how boring and predictable our marriage was, how exciting and alive Matthew made her feel. There was one message in particular that completely destroyed me. Rebecca wrote to Matthew something like, "Christopher is a good person, but he doesn't ignite me like you do. Our life together is comfortable, but not passionate, and I think I deserve to feel truly desired." And Matthew responded with all this garbage about how she deserved to explore her true desires, that monogamy was a social prison, and that what they shared was a special connection that transcended the limitations of traditional marriage. Basically, a manipulation manual disguised as deep philosophy. I heard the shower turn off and quickly put the phone back where it was, my heart beating so loud I thought Rebecca might hear it. From the bathroom, she came out with her hair wrapped in a towel, smiling, and gave me a kiss on the cheek before going to bed. I stayed on the couch until 4 in the morning, just staring at the ceiling, trying to process what I had just discovered. Part of me wanted to go into the bedroom and confront her immediately, but another part, the more calculating part, I didn't know I had, told me to wait, to gather more information, to think carefully about my next move. The next few days were torture. Honestly, I acted normal, or at least I tried to. While inside, I was falling apart. Rebecca kept behaving as if nothing was wrong, came home and told me about her day, conveniently excluding the part where she was sleeping with her married coworker. I nodded, asked the appropriate questions, cooked dinner. We watched TV together, and the whole time I thought, how can she do this? How can she look me in the face and act like everything is fine? Then, like a week after the initial discovery, Rebecca dropped a bomb on me in a way I never expected. We were having dinner, like a normal Tuesday night, and suddenly she put her fork on her plate and told me, "I need to talk to you about something important." My stomach sank because I thought she was going to confess the affair. But no. What she said was worse in a way. She explained that she had been thinking a lot about our relationship, that she loved me but felt something was missing, that she had been reading and talking with people about modern relationship concepts, and basically asked me if I'd be open to her exploring romantic connections with other people while we stayed married. I looked at her, unable to believe what I was hearing. She kept talking, using all the terminology she had clearly learned from Matthew about ethical polyamory and how love doesn't have to be exclusive, and how this could strengthen our relationship by allowing us to grow as individuals. I asked her directly if there was someone specific she was interested in, and she had the nerve to lie to my face, saying no, that it was just a theoretical idea she wanted to explore. I knew the truth, obviously, but in that moment, I made a decision that would change everything. I told her I needed time to think about it, that it was a lot to process, and that we'd talk more about it in a few days. Rebecca seemed relieved, as if she had expected me to explode or something, and gave me a hug saying she loved me and that this could be good for us. That night, after she fell asleep, I started planning my response. I wasn't going to be the passive victim in this situation, that was clear. If Rebecca wanted to play this game, I was going to play too, but with my own rules. The first thing I did was contact a lawyer. I looked for one specialized in divorces and explained the whole situation to him. The infidelities, the messages, everything. He advised me to document everything I could. So I started taking screenshots of the conversations between Rebecca and Matthew when she left her phone unattended. I also hired a private investigator. I know, it sounds super dramatic like a movie, but I wanted solid evidence of the times they had met at hotels. The investigator got me photos and hotel records that basically confirmed everything I already knew. Meanwhile, I acted like the considerate husband seriously thinking about Rebecca's proposal. I told her I had been researching open relationships and polyamory, that I saw her valid points, and that maybe we could try it with clear rules. Rebecca was thrilled, almost euphoric, and started talking openly about Matthew, saying there was a coworker she felt a special connection with and would like to explore. I nodded and pretended to be processing all this with an open mind, when in reality, every conversation made my blood boil. This is where my plan got interesting. I decided that if Rebecca wanted to open our marriage, I was going to participate too, at least in appearance. There was a girl at my gym, Emily, who I had casually chatted with a few times. She was smart, funny, and when I explained my situation in general terms, without giving her all the details, she understood that I needed help with something. I asked her if she'd be willing to pose as my date in a specific situation, and she agreed because she thought it sounded like an interesting story, and also because she had gone through something similar with her ex. The plan was simple but effective. I told Rebecca I had met someone at the gym and that if she was going to go out with Matthew, I also wanted to try this external connections thing. Rebecca seemed a bit surprised. I think she expected me to stay home like the complacent husband while she had fun. But she agreed, saying that's exactly what an open relationship means. We arranged that she would go out with Matthew on a Friday night, and I would apparently have my own date. What Rebecca didn't know was that I had investigated Matthew beyond just documenting his affair with my wife. Turns out Matthew was known in the office for basically being a serial manipulator. I contacted Emily from work, one of Rebecca's coworkers who I had always liked, and asked her discreetly about Matthew. Emily sighed and told me that Matthew had a pattern. He approached married women, bombarded them with attention and pseudo-intellectual philosophy about freeing themselves from social conventions, slept with them for a few months, and then moved on to the next one when he got bored or things got too complicated. He had done this with at least 3 women in the office that Emily knew of, and his own wife apparently had no idea or had decided to ignore it. Friday came and Rebecca got ready like she was going to the Met Gala or something. She put on a dress I had never seen her wear, like she had gone out to buy it specifically for this occasion, and she looked beautiful, which made everything more painful if I'm honest. She gave me a kiss on the cheek and wished me luck with my date, and I wished her the same with a smile that probably looked more like a grimace. As soon as she left, I called Emily from the gym and told her to come over. Emily arrived about half an hour later, and I explained to her exactly what I needed. She was going to pretend to be my date. We were going to be in the living room of the house, acting like we had been on a romantic date and had come back to continue the evening, right when Rebecca returned. Emily thought it was a bit dramatic but understood the point, and besides, she confessed that she had also been cheated on by her ex-husband in a similar way, so she felt a certain satisfaction in helping me. Rebecca came back around 11 at night, probably earlier than she expected because surely Matthew had to return to his wife and kids. She opened the door and found Emily and me on the couch, drinking wine, laughing, with soft music in the background. Rebecca's face was priceless. It went from confusion to shock to fury in a matter of seconds. She looked at me and said, "What's going on here?" And I, with the absolute calmest I could muster, told her, "I thought we had agreed to explore other connections. This is Emily. We went out to dinner and decided to continue here at home." Rebecca completely lost her composure. She started yelling that this was different, that she hadn't said I could bring people to our house, that this was disrespectful. I got up from the couch and told her, "Disrespectful? Like sending inappropriate photos to your married coworker? Like making up work meetings to go to hotels? Like that kind of disrespect?" Rebecca went pale, and I took out my phone where I had all the screenshots and evidence I had compiled over the past few weeks. I showed her everything, the messages, the photos, the hotel records, while Emily sat quietly on the couch watching Rebecca's life fall apart before her eyes. Rebecca tried to stammer some explanation, saying I didn't understand, that she and Matthew had something special, that asking for an open relationship was so, I wouldn't feel excluded. I just shook my head and took out the divorce papers my lawyer had prepared. I told her she had two options: sign the papers that same night and make this relatively simple, or fight in court where all the evidence of her infidelity would become public. Rebecca broke down, literally sat on the floor and started crying, saying she had made a mistake, that Matthew had put ideas in her head, that she loved me, and that we could go to couples therapy. I looked at her, feeling a mixture of pity and disgust, because part of me still loved the person she had been, but that person clearly no longer existed. I told her she had until Monday to leave the house, and to contact my lawyer for the divorce details. Emily discreetly said goodbye and left, and I locked myself in the guest bedroom while Rebecca cried in the living room. But my plan didn't end there, because honestly I was furious not just with Rebecca but also with Matthew for being the kind of man who destroys marriages for fun. I contacted Emily from work again and asked her if she'd be willing to help me expose Matthew. She was more than willing, because apparently Matthew had tried his tactics on her too before she told him to go to hell. Between the two of us, we compiled testimonies from the other women Matthew had manipulated, including emails and messages they had saved. Emily filed a formal complaint with Human Resources at the company where Rebecca and Matthew worked, with all the evidence that Matthew was using his position to create hostile and inappropriate environments with female employees. The company took the matter seriously because they didn't want a potential lawsuit, and Matthew was fired about 2 weeks after all the drama. His wife also found out about everything, although I don't know exactly how because I didn't orchestrate that part. Maybe someone from the office told her, or she finally opened her eyes. But the result was that Matthew's perfect world also fell apart. Rebecca tried to contact me several times after that night, text messages, emails. She even showed up at my work once crying and begging us to talk. I stood firm because I knew that if I gave in even a little, she was going to try to manipulate me into coming back, and I had already made the decision to end this completely. My lawyer handled all the legal communications, and Rebecca eventually accepted the divorce terms because she knew she didn't have much room to negotiate with all the evidence against her. The ironic thing is that Matthew completely ghosted her after he was fired. Rebecca confessed to me in one of her desperate attempts to communicate that he had told her they couldn't see each other anymore because his wife was watching him and he needed to focus on saving his own marriage. All that talk about special connections and love that transcend social conventions evaporated the moment real consequences appeared. Rebecca realized she had destroyed a 6-year marriage for a guy who basically collected affairs and never had serious intentions with her. The divorce was finalized about 3 months ago. Rebecca signed the papers without much fight because she basically had no valid legal arguments. We divided assets relatively equitably. I kept the apartment because technically it was in my name from before we got married, and she moved in with Danielle, her friend, who had been so instrumental in putting all those ideas about freeing herself from traditional marriage in her head. I wonder if Danielle feels responsible for the mess she helped create. Probably not. As for me, I'm okay, I guess. Some days are better than others. I'm not going to lie and say I got over everything magically and that I'm happy all the time, because I'm not. There are moments where I miss the routine I had with Rebecca. I miss having someone to watch TV with on Friday nights or cook with on Sundays. But then I remember the messages I read, the betrayal, the lies, and I realize I'm better off without someone who could do that so easily. Emily from the gym and I have stayed in touch. It's nothing romantic, at least not yet, but it's nice to have a friend who understands what I went through because she lived through something similar. We go out for coffee sometimes, talk about our traumatic divorces, and laugh about how absurd human behavior can be when people let themselves be carried away by their most selfish impulses. My family and friends have been incredible through all this. At first, some thought maybe I had been too hard on Rebecca, that I should have tried couples therapy before going straight to divorce. But when I explained the full extent of her deception and manipulation, they understood my decision. My mom, who really loved Rebecca like a daughter, cried when she found out, but told me I did the right thing by not allowing myself to be treated that way. I've been in therapy too, because even though many people think divorce only affects the person who was obviously cheated on, the reality is that discovering your partner betrayed you for months destroys your ability to trust people. My therapist has helped me process the rage, the pain, and also the guilt because yes, part of me still wonders if I did something wrong, if I was so boring and predictable that I pushed Rebecca to look for excitement elsewhere. Rationally, I know it's not my fault, that she made conscious decisions to cheat instead of communicating her problems, but emotions aren't rational. What bothers me most when I think about it is how easy it was for Rebecca to lie to me for so long. 6 years together, years of building a life, memories, future plans, and she could throw all that away for a guy who sold her fantasies about special love and deep connections. It makes me question whether I ever really knew her or if I only loved the version of her she showed me. It's a depressing thought, honestly. As for work, I've been more focused than ever. I threw myself headfirst into projects I had been postponing, took additional courses to improve my skills, basically used work as therapy. My bosses noticed my extra dedication and gave me a raise a month ago, so I guess something good came out of all this mess. Money doesn't replace the emotional void, but at least it keeps me busy and makes me feel like I'm progressing in some aspect of my life. I've gone back to the gym regularly, not just to see Emily, but because I need to do something with all the anxiety and nervous energy I have. I lost like 10 pounds during all the divorce drama because I basically couldn't eat without feeling nauseous, but now I'm recovering and in better physical shape than ever. It's funny how trauma can motivate you to do things you didn't have the discipline to do before. My friends have tried to push me to date new people, like setting me up on dates with friends of their wives or convincing me to download dating apps. I'm not ready for that yet, and maybe I won't be for a good while. The idea of opening up emotionally to someone new, of trusting another person with my heart, terrifies me after what happened. I know I'll eventually have to try again if I don't want to end up alone and bitter, but for now I'm fine focusing on myself and rebuilding the trust that Rebecca destroyed. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had never seen that message on her phone that night. How long would Rebecca have continued the affair? Would she have eventually left me for Matthew? Or would he have gotten bored and she would have come back to me without me ever knowing? Would we have continued in our comfortable and boring marriage while she maintained her secret life? These are thoughts that torment me when I'm alone in the apartment we used to share. I've removed all the photos we had around the house. I didn't throw them away because I'm not that dramatic, but they're stored in boxes in the closet. Part of me wants to burn them or tear them up in a cathartic gesture of closing that chapter, but another part knows that those memories, although now tinged with betrayal, were real at the time. We were happy once, before Matthew and Danielle and all that toxic philosophy about modern relationships entered our lives. I haven't spoken to Rebecca again since she signed the divorce papers. I know from mutual friends that she's not doing well, that she lost her job at the tech company because the environment became unbearable after the scandal with Matthew, and that she's basically starting from scratch at 30 years old. Part of me feels sorry, but the bigger part, the part that's still angry, thinks it's exactly what she deserves for the decisions she made. Matthew is also divorced now, according to what Emily told me. His wife not only left him but took the kids, and is fighting for full custody, presenting evidence of his unfaithful and manipulative behavior. He tried to get work at other companies in the sector, but his reputation is basically destroyed because people talk in these industries. It gives me a dark satisfaction knowing that they're both facing real consequences for their actions. For the last time I saw Rebecca was about a month ago. We ran into each other by accident at the supermarket. She was in the cereal aisle, and I turned the corner without expecting it. We looked at each other for an awkward and endless second, and she opened her mouth as if to say something, but I just kept walking. I had nothing to say to her, and honestly didn't want to hear any late apology or explanation. That chapter is closed, although the complete book still has many blank pages that I don't know how I'm going to fill. Last night I was watching TV alone, eating pizza straight from the box, because there's no one to judge me for not using a plate, and I realized that for the first time in months, I didn't feel that constant weight in my chest. It wasn't happiness exactly, but it wasn't the sharp pain I had felt for so long either. It was something in between, like acceptance or resignation. I'm not sure. Emily says, that's progress. That eventually the pain becomes a scar that doesn't hurt all the time, but only when you press on it. I guess she's right.